it was like, I didn't have the intention of starting a beauty brand, but I certainly had the intention of making my routine clean, non-toxic, and free of heavy metals.
Welcome back to From Grit to Growth. This is the show where we dig into real stories of founders, the grit it takes to start, the growth that follows, and everything in between. I'm Jennifer Damana. I'm joined by my co-host, Mark Haysbrook. And today we've got a guest I have personally been dying to have on, Jules, the founder of Simple Body and simplebodyproducts.com. So here's the deal. Last Christmas, I walked into her store, and within 5 minutes, I thought, what is this magic? The products, the vibe, the results. I just was in heaven. She has a clean beauty store before anyone was talking about clean beauty. And what makes her story even better, and there was something that Jules and I talked about a couple of weeks ago, is kind of this inflection point. I think it was about 12 years into the business, which I'd love for you to talk about at some point. She made this massive pivot, wondered what would happen, and her business has never been better. So she's truly a founder that's lived the highs, the lows, and the wild turns of building a beauty business today. And she's here to hopefully share it all with our listeners. So Jules, you launched Simple Beauty long before clean beauty was a buzzword. Tell us about your history and how you got to this idea of starting up a clean beauty store.
Absolutely. I think it's the most pivotal story of Simple Body. I was running a graphic design agency. I had gone to school in New York for graphic design and running a pretty successful agency. And I was living in Colorado. My parents were living in Western New York. And my mom started exhibiting very weird symptoms, lots of cognitive problems. She would call me crying. She couldn't remember why she was headed into town or what she ate for breakfast. I mean, really bad issues. And we spent about a year kind of going through some Western medicine and really couldn't get any answers. And lo and behold, she ended up having an overexposure to aluminum chloride. So she basically had heavy metal poisoning. And it made me dive into health and how would this happen? Why would this happen? Why are companies allowed to use heavy metals in their cosmetics? How is it getting absorbed into our bloodstream and then ending up on our brain as plaque, which it mimics Alzheimer's and dementia. So it gives you cognitive problems. And I just didn't like any of the answers that I was getting. So I ended up reading a book called The Green Beauty Guide, and it was written by a doctor in Europe. And she was basically shaming Americans, saying, gosh, you guys are using all of these toxic, carcinogenic, endocrine disrupting ingredients every day. Don't you know what you're doing? And I kind of didn't believe that to be true. So I took her little guide, and she had this awesome encyclopedia in the back and list of all these ingredients that were banned in Europe. So I went into a very popular store, because again, this was 15 years ago. And I went up and down the aisles, and I literally turned over every skincare product in that aisle. And sure enough, every single one had one or more of those ingredients in it. I found 2 products, a lip balm and a face cream, which was like a 1 ounce tiny little face cream for like $100. That was, didn't have one of those ingredients in it. And I said, well, something's got to change, because number one, I can't afford a $100 face cream. Number 2, how you can't create a skincare routine from one product. I've got to do something. So that was really the moment where it was like, I didn't have the intention of starting a beauty brand, but I certainly had the intention of making my routine clean, non-toxic, and free of heavy metals.
Jules, where did you start? I mean, it's a $1 billion industry, and there's companies that have so much money to spend on research and development and product development. And it's funny, all of them seem to come back to, well, let's just use the least common denominator of lousy stuff for your product, for you and in their products. How did you kind of become, the David to their Goliath here?
Yeah, it's really true. And still to this day. I started, so in that book, there were some quote recipes that she had. So I
Hmm.
thought, well, I'm just going to make these and see what happens. Well, I love this woman to pieces, but these recipes were horrible. I mean, they would mold in 2 days. They didn't emulsify. Um, but it got my hands in the pot, so to speak. It got my interest peaked. Like, I can make these better. I need to figure out what I can do to prevent mold. I need to figure out how to emulsify and have the formula hold. So I probably spent a couple of years just buying ingredients and toying with formulas. That's when I really was working on my deodorant formula. I spent
Mm.
2 to 3 years really perfecting that formula. And I was really my goal at the time was to use edible grade ingredients. So ingredients that you literally could eat. Because if we can eat them, we can put them on our bodies and feel, that they're going to be safe for our body. So I just kind of started off like that. And again, I was running the agency during the week. And then on the weekends, I was sort of like a weekend warrior in my kitchen, just kind of putting different ingredients together. And then ultimately, I knew I had to get some education. So I went to the School for Natural Skincare in Europe to
Wow.
really learn to professionally formulate.
Wow. And so after you came back from that school, when did you really know that you needed to quit that full-time job and go into this all in?
This is a great story for your listeners because I didn't care what I was spending because I had a full-time job. So I was buying ingredients and containers and labels and equipment. And sort of the mistake I made was it was all muddled into the books of my design agency. Because again, I really wasn't in my head thinking I was going to start it as a business. It was really just kind of this side hustle, fun project that I was doing. So my husband, who was a CFO in Silicon Valley, he's the finance guy. He's the book guy. And at the end of like year 2 or 3, he said, we have to talk. And he was very serious. And I said, well, what's going on? And he said, I have some good news for you and I have some bad news for you. What do you want to hear? I'm like, well, just give it to me. So he said, your graphic design agency is doing very well financially. You're making good money. So every penny that you've made in profit from that business has gone to fund this little hobby over here. So you are income neutral. You've made no money this year and you've worked your brains out. And I
Perfect.
said, wow, what do I do? And he said, you've got some tough decisions to make. I can see where your passion is. It's in creating these products. It's in these formulas. You don't seem as passionate about the design business anymore. It's kind of just funding, this hobby for you. You need to put all of your energy into one of these businesses. Which one are you going to pick? Now, him being the finance guy, I'm pretty sure he wanted me to pick the design agency because it was already up and running and making money. But I was like, oh, no brainer. I'm going to pick the skincare. So,
Of course.
yeah, so that's when I really got serious about the business. I started, keeping books. I started focusing on the brand. I decided to really just, launch a skincare line.
Do you attribute that to you were solving a personal problem versus just saying, I'm going to start a skincare brand?
Absolutely. Yeah, I couldn't find any products that I liked, that really moisturized my skin because living here in Colorado, we have like extreme weather conditions It's very dry. It's very arid. We live at altitude. We have extreme sun. There was not a single moisturizer on the market that I considered clean that would moisturize my skin. So, and again, if we think 15 years ago, think back to the natural deodorants that were on the shelf.
Right.
I mean, they made you smell worse. They were sticky. They just simply just didn't work. So yeah, this was absolutely a quest for me to build products that worked, that were affordable for people, and that I knew every single ingredient that was in that formula and knew it was safe.
Well, and I mean, in reality, there was all this clean beauty supposedly out there that wasn't actually clean. And you going to Europe, I think you really learned what clean beauty is. And yes. Mark and I are so into health and wellness. And I think, the redheaded stepchild is beauty. We forget, we exercise, we work on sleep, we work on reducing our stress, we work on our food, and then we put all this stuff all over our skin, the largest organ of our body. And you are really, really showing, and I really encourage our listeners to go out to simplebodyproducts.com, what clean beauty actually looks like. Is this what you've seen as well?
Thanks, Jennifer. I really appreciate that. I mean, yes, I definitely hold our company to different standards than a lot of other companies. And I don't want to disparage any other businesses, but I will tell you that I focus on cradle to grave skincare, which means I'm looking at the ingredients that we buy, how they're grown, how they're harvested, how they're getting transported to my supplier, how they're getting transported to me, how they're being held, how we're incorporating them into the formulas, all the way to our glass packaging, which can be repurposed or recycled. And that is a very, very, very hard thing for a small business to do. But because of my training and my goal to try to follow Cosmos standards, which is the European standard for clean and non-toxic beauty, that is what I pay attention to. And so it's makes things challenging, but that's what we're doing.
Well, let's talk a little bit about, you started to realize this was a business. I mean, it's certainly a passion. It certainly is solving a problem. When did you notice that, okay, this is now tipping over to a real business and you're starting to generate revenue and customers? How did you take the emotion and the application of creating products and being the mad scientist to saying, I'm now going to make this a business? And how did you know? Because a lot of our founders, I'll land the plane here eventually. A lot of our founders get to the point where they say, I got a lot of interesting products here. I'm not sure I have a business. How did you turn that into a business?
My customers told me from day one that I had a business. I heard day in and day out, we've been looking for this. Your face cream works amazing. This is the first deodorant I've ever tried that works. It was literally all through customer feedback. I just simply wasn't getting any negative feedback. And so despite the fact that I really reinvested anything I could have made back into the business for the first probably 5 years, it just kept growing and growing. And our gross sales was doubling year on year on year for the first 5 years until COVID, So, and then there was that whole mess, but
right.
This is probably going to sound crazy, but I kind of didn't care. I wasn't doing it for the business. I was doing it to help people. I wanted to help my friends, my family, my community. I mean, I was preaching to everybody I knew that they had to change their ways. They had to
Yeah.
start using clean beauty, or later in life, they're going to see ramifications.
Well, you're essentially leading the existence of the clean beauty as a category. So I love the fact that you've incorporated the education from the very front end.
Yeah.
Getting into the business a little bit more, when did you say, I've got to open a store, or now I've got to open the e-commerce and I've got to start an e-commerce site up? And how did you go through those decisions and that process?
Well, what's really funny is even back when I had the design agency, I had a small office with a glass door, and it happened to be at the sidewalk level, rooted in this little community called Old Colorado City, which is
Yeah.
like the historic district for Colorado Springs. So I kind of had this walk-in design agency, and I had a few designers with desks in that space. So when I first started this little side hustle, a few of my friends knew that I were doing it. And so they would come and they would peek on the glass door, and they'd kind of knock and they'd peek their head in and say, hey, do you have any of that deodorant here? Do you have any of that face cream here? All of that stuff. And so back to the early days, they were knocking on my door trying to get product. So I always had a little shelf by my design desk. And eventually my designers, we love them, but
Right.
they're pretty high maintenance. They were like, Jules, there's too much commotion in here. There's too much traffic. We can't concentrate. So I actually took the design team. I rented a secondary space for the agency and moved them all upstairs. And I maintained that downstairs space, and it became my design office / little retail store. My parents came out and they helped me paint and decorate and, kind of create this little store / office for myself. So back from the early days, I was always selling out of sort of a storefront.
Oh, that's neat. So are you in that same storefront? Is that
No.
Okay.
So what happened is COVID happened, and our business was getting busier. And we had this tiny little space where we're trying to do production, we're trying to sell. I'm trying to still kind of design on the side to keep some money coming in. And I remember this very clearly. I had one young woman helping me, and she was not feeling well. She wanted to go home. And so she's like, Jules, can you take over for me? I've got some soap on the stove and blah, blah, blah. I'm like, sure, go ahead. So I've got boxes stacked up because we were trying to buy supplies ahead of time, because it was COVID and we didn't know if we could get containers and such. So I've got boxes stacked all over the store. I've got soap cooking. I've got a Zoom call for a design meeting coming up, and I'm sort of running around trying to, take care of all this stuff. And I tripped over a box and I ripped my toenail off.
Ooh.
And I was like, that's it. We need a bigger space. And this was like at the height of COVID. And I came home and I said to my husband, I'm going to rent a bigger storefront. And he's like, are you crazy? There's something called COVID happening. And I'm like, I don't care. I need a bigger store. And that's when I literally, August of 2020, I moved into my current space, which is almost 3,000 square feet compared to 500 square feet.
I'm picturing soap cooking. I just don't even know what that would look like, but it's a great visual.
I'll send you a video.
It's a great visual. But tell me about your customer base. Like, so who finds you and how often do they buy from you? And, the repeat rate, maybe average order and stuff. And besides Jennifer, because she's probably an outlier.
Yeah. Well, a lot of folks do find me by coming to Old Colorado City and coming into the store. I have a very robust e-commerce website, which is actually, in terms of revenue, is going to overtake the retail store, which I think is every beauty brand's dream, right?
Yeah, very cool.
E-commerce site sort of cooking. And then it's total word of mouth, and it really has been since the beginning. My customers are my biggest advocates. They are the ones who buy it as gifts, talk to their friends, talk to their family. They're my street preachers. I mean, they're out there literally talking about Simple Body day in and day out. I have a very, very, very small Google Ads budget that just kind of runs in the background. I mean, it's like less than $2,000 a month, and it drives people to at least look at the website. And we get some conversions from that, but I have been wildly unsuccessful with Meta ads and Google ads. It has really been my customer base and me asking my customer base to tell a friend, tell a family member, buy it as a gift. That has really been the only thing that's gotten us traction.
That is such a lesson for anyone who's
Yeah.
listening. That is the forgotten thing.
Yes.
We're constantly going and doing Meta and Google and trying to reach people that have never heard of us before. So that is a very big hill to climb.
Right.
And they skip right over the easier opportunity, which is if you loved us, tell your friends, tell your family.
Right.
Yeah, that's
When
amazing.
you develop this like cult like following, which it's such a blessing we have, they want to help you. Your customers will do anything to help you. I recently, Tuesday, I sent out an email to our customer base, and it was a personal email from me saying, I'm working on building a new website and I need true blue customer testimonials and like a nice, clean selfie, well illuminated, and your willingness to be posted on our website. The emails are literally flooding in. And of course, every time I read them, I'm sobbing because they are just from the heart, really amazing testimonials. But you have to utilize your audience that loves you. It's
do. Yeah. And I saw you in action last Christmas because I walked into that old Colorado City store, which I realize is probably just a great location for you, the great target market. You've got Manitou Springs right there. So you've got a lot of people from all over the country coming into this area. They go in your store, you treat them like they are the most important thing you've got going right now. Like
they are
amazing because they are, right? But
yeah,
and then your expertise kicks in and they're like, whoa, this is incredible. They take their products home, they get the great results, and they go on your site because now they're hundreds, thousands of miles away. So it's just it's kind of a smart move that, you created all this. I do want you to talk about, you and I a couple of weeks talked about, I thought this was an interesting moment. There was an inflection kind of moment for you. I think it was 12 years into the business. And you sort of had to get to some degree, I think, your hands off the wheel and see where this brand would go. And it went where you wanted it to go. But why don't you tell it in your words to our listeners?
I mean, I spent so many years doing literally every aspect of the business. I mean, production and labeling and designing and sales and wholesale and bookkeeping and marketing. And, there comes a point, I'm in my mid 50s now, so you just get really exhausted. I don't want to say burned out because that's just the wrong word, just tired. You just get tired. And you have to learn to trust the people and empower the people that you've hired without micromanaging them. I always thought, well, nobody can tell the story like I can, or nobody can sell like I can. Oh, that is such the wrong approach. You have to hire well, train well, and empower them to do what you do. And it was really scary, sort of letting go of production, especially because, products have to be made with consistency and they have to be perfect. There's just no way around it. And I do treat my customers like they're my best friend because they are. So it's like, ooh, who can I hire that's going to literally hug people when they come in the store? I mean, how can you find someone that's going to, but you do. You interview and interview and interview until you find those people that share your characteristics. And then you let go. And it's a very scary moment. But boy, when I did, then I could focus on, running the business, growing the business, all of those things that you can't do when you're in the thick of it.
Right. So many things
You
happening at
thought your
once.
business would go down
I did.
because you were no longer holding on
Right.
tight, and
Right.
instead it went the other direction
It
from
went
what
the
I
other
understand.
direction. Yeah. Well,
Amazing.
because I have the most amazing staff you could ask for. That every day they amaze me.
Hmm.
And I'm so grateful. I literally couldn't do it without them.
Do you ever sit back and look to the future and wonder what, the next 5 or 10 years holds for you? And if so, what does that look like?
Oh my gosh, I think about this all the time. And it's definitely not where I initially thought the business would go. I think at some point, I was thinking, oh, this could be a unicorn. We could be, we could merge with RMS Beauty or, because they're doing makeup and we're doing skincare, or we could, look for another partner where we could really, grow and double our business. And then when I turned 50, I got my first colonoscopy and I found out I had colon cancer. And that sort of changed what I wanted out of life, what I wanted out of the business, where I thought the business was going to go.
Mhm.
I knew at that moment I had to figure out how to get better balance in my life, how to start taking better care of myself. And so I have internally told myself, you have to be okay with making a good salary, taking some time off, finding hobbies that, fit where your health goals are. And it's perfectly great.
Mm.
You have, because I think every founder goes through this like, oh, I'm going to make $5 million or $10 million and, sell this business for a fortune and sail off into the sunset. But the truth be told, that's like such a small percentage of businesses that actually get to that point. You have to set realistic goals for yourself. And that's what I never did in the beginning. I wasn't like, not in the beginning, but like when I was really starting to ramp up the business, I didn't set realistic goals. I wasn't like, what do I want to make as a salary? How many days a week do I want to work? How many days a week do I want to go to yoga? How many days do I want to golf? And how can I get to those goals for balance and
Right.
health and wellness in my life? Because if I keep going at this pace, I'm not going to be around much longer.
Mhm. Mhm.
So I think setting those realistic financial goals and lifestyle goals are so important, and being very honest about them with yourself.
Mhm.
That's very interesting. I especially since you went through such a meaningful moment for yourself. And I know like there's a lot of us that we don't know. You cross that bridge, you get to the other side. We don't know how that feels. We can only imagine how that feels.
Yeah.
Right.
And I'm sure it really reset and gave you new perspective on what's important in the grand scheme of things. And you took that and you designed yourself a new life that would impact you positively as well as everyone around you, it sounds like, which is just incredible.
I think my husband's happy to have me around a little more.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, we were like shifts passing in the night for years.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I know your business is doing really well. If you what are some of the things that you hope to be able to achieve in the business in the next few years? What are some of your bigger goals?
I mean, I hope to really reward my staff heavily. That's one of my biggest goals in the business, is that I want to financially recognize them. I want to make them feel like they are, because they are a very huge part of the business. So I'd love to have enough profit at the end of the year to just give them wild, crazy bonuses. Um, you know, that to me would be so satisfying. I'm working on building a new website. We're moving our website from WooCommerce over to Shopify, which I'm hoping will launch in the next 30 days or so. And I'm really hoping to grow the business on the e-commerce site. And Colorado Springs, like a lot of bigger cities, has gone through this sort of, weird economic times. So I'd like to be able to provide more jobs for the people in our community, meaningful jobs,
Mhm.
We have a lot of like military wives that live here because we're a huge military community. And I know some of them have expressed to me they would love to work at Simple Body, and I'd love to be able to provide jobs for them. So I'm trying not to get too far ahead of that. I
Yeah.
don't want to have all of these unrealistic and tons of goals, because then when you don't achieve them, you feel terrible about yourself. So I want to set
Mhm.
some realistic goals and just work toward that.
Love it.
That's great. What's the legacy, I guess, you would leave with your team and your customers? Have you thought about that, and what story you want them to be telling?
You're not going to believe me when I tell you this, but it's true. A couple weeks ago, I had a dream that unfortunately I passed away, and I left the business in my will to Amy, who's my head of production.
Mm.
She's never wanted to be a business owner, but she's been the right-hand person for two now, me and her former business owner. And she is fully capable of running a business, even though she says she doesn't want to. If the business ever gets to a point where I can sort of retire, the business is going to Amy.
Interesting.
Or my niece. If my niece
Right.
decides real estate isn't for her anymore and she wants to come, sort of come run a skincare business, because when she was 9 or 10, she's in New York. She visited Colorado, and she was out on the sidewalk with a little tray. Try my aunt's lotions, try my, she was great at it.
Interesting.
So I don't really have any thoughts beyond that.
Yeah. Well, I think, maybe summarize a little bit what you're saying is that you care so much about the quality of the products and taking care of your customers that everything else seems to take care of itself.
It's true. It's true. And I've gotten the business finally to a point where it doesn't really feel like work. I'm just doing what I enjoy, and I'm
Mhm.
sort of flexing my time. And I still, like, my husband and I are going to Costa Rica for the month of January,
Nice.
and I'll be sort of in and out of work. I'll probably work a few hours every day just to, keep my finger on the pulse.
Mhm.
But because I'm building that life that I want, it doesn't feel like work. So I just don't even think about 10 years from now. What does it look like?
So a lot of our listeners are hopefully founders like you, and some of them are in that grit stage where they're working on the very beginning. Some of them are in that messy middle a little bit. Sometimes there's growth, sometimes there's not. What's one piece of advice you would give them?
I think it was truly crucial that I was still working full time when I started the business, because, I see too many people take funding or go after investors or take friends and family money. And that's how they're sustaining themselves through the initial launch of the business. Whereas I think it was really critical that I kept designing and I kept that little bit of income coming in so that every bit of revenue that came into the business initially went right back into the business. And I could forego a salary for the first 5 years of the business. Because you're probably going to anyway, but you have to plan for how are you going to live? You've got bills to pay. So I think keeping money coming in, while you're sort of starting a business for me, it was crucial.
So you've got a full-time job, you're starting a new business, I hope I'm not doing the math wrong, you're in your 40s. So
Yeah.
it's not like you've got the energy of a 20-year-old, although you probably do.
Before menopause, I had tons of energy.
Right?
I did.
Right. Well, maybe also speaking of menopause, and I was shopping your site, mature skin. I love that section. But do you want to give our listeners top products that you love that they could go to simplebodyproducts.com right now and they just click those couple products and they're good to go as a starting point?
There's a mature skincare kit, which is just my favorite. It's all my favorite products. So I love our age defense serum. It's got CoQ10, it's got bacochiol, all of these premium oils, rose hip seed oil, meadowfoam seed oil, camellia seed oil, vitamin E. I couldn't live without it. And then we have a barrier defense serum, which is your ceramides and your hyaluronic acid. I couldn't live without that. And then our age defying tonic, which is a water-based bacochiol. It primes your skin and really gets it ready for your moisturizers and your serums. And the Beauty Balm. The Beauty Balm is the one product that I've created that has, it's our top seller by tenfold.
Wow.
It's a vitamin C moisturizer, and it's yellow and it's creamy and it melts into your skin. It's just an amazing moisturizer. Totally amazing.
I have most of those products.
Good. Okay, good. Am I wrong?
No, they smell good. They feel good. They go on the skin nicely. Your skin is moisturized, not greasy. I could talk all day long.
Yeah.
So, well, thank you so much for joining us today. I am
honored.
Sure listeners have learned a lot. And we really appreciate just being so open and vulnerable with our listeners. It really is fantastic. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Thanks so much for having me.
Thanks, Jules. Appreciate it.